Brittany Kaiser, once a key player inside Cambridge Analytica, casting herself as a whistleblower.
The reason why
Google, Facebook
are the most powerful companies in the world is because last year data surpassed oil in value. Data is the most valuable asset on Earth.
We targeted those whose minds we thought we could change until they saw the world the way we wanted them to. I do know that their targeting tool was considered a weapon.
There is a possibility that the American public had been experimented on.
This is becoming a criminal matter. When people see the extent of the surveillance, I think they're going to be shocked.
And I still fear for your life.
Yeah.
With the powerful people that are involved.
But I can't keep quiet just because it'll make powerful people mad.
Brittany, fantastic to have you along. Really looking forward to this. Yeah. Vesa, where are you coming to us from?
This is from the factory of where this glorious studio that I'm going to be sending a 3D render for you soon.
Brittany, you are just an absolute champion of the digital rights space. You know, you're a digital rights activist. You're right up there with Edward Snowden and Julian Assange as somebody really looking out for our personal rights and freedoms. So fantastic to have you along. And we're going to be learning about the project that the two of you are working on together in the second half of this chat. We've just had some massive news. Many people in the blockchain space are calling this the sort of the biggest bullet that's been fired at us out of the US with Steve Mnuchin. And for the very few people that don't know who you are, can you tell us a bit about your background?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on, Sean. And it's a pleasure to be with such an amazing audience who cares about all the things that I do. You know, I call myself a data rights activist because I've spent, every waking moment of the past few years, since I became a whistleblower in March 2018, working on legislation, policy, education, awareness, and even technology advancements in privacy, data protection, and digital assets ownership. And so your digital assets can be your personal data or they can be your blockchain tokens. You know, it's the same thing to me. Tokens are just encrypted blocks of data. So we're talking about a similar asset class. We're talking about something that has largely gone unregulated and not very well understood by governments, specifically because you can't see it, you can't touch it, and most of them didn't grow up with computers. So therefore, we've been in this strange no man's land since the beginning of the proliferation of blockchain technology around the world, where our legislators and regulators don't actually understand exactly what we're doing. And therefore, it's really easy for them to be afraid of it. It's really easy for them to just decide that it is a threat to the current monetary system and used in order to make criminal activity easier and just close it off at that and try to stop it. And that's what has been such a magical journey over the past few years, because I have helped bring blockchain technologists from around the world to legislators so that they can actually understand how this technology works and how important it is. And I would say the kind of landmark case study that we have is the state of Wyoming, where we passed 19 laws in the past 2 years. 2.5 years, I guess now. And we're still working on many more. And we have the most complex and comprehensive legislative framework for protecting entrepreneurs in the blockchain technology space in the whole world. We've surpassed Switzerland, Singapore, Estonia, Lithuania, all of the other great examples of places that have had laws that protect blockchain entrepreneurs. And, it's interesting because obviously Wyoming is a state that still has to obey by federal laws in the United States. But a lot of the laws in Wyoming have given direction for the whole country on the way that this industry should be regulated or not. So this surprise sideswipe right before the administrative change.
Over Christmas and New Year, in 15 days for anyone to comment on it. What the hell is going on here? I mean, we know Mnuchin literally hates Bitcoin. I mean, there's just no question around this, or block crypto in general. Good God.
Yeah,
what's going on? What's going on, in your opinion?
Funnily enough, the first time I ever met Steve Mnuchin was at Davos in 2018, where he came to my event venue called Crypto HQ and had beers with us for a couple hours to discuss blockchain technology.
Look, I got to ask straight away. I mean, as a person, what's he like? What's he like? I mean, is he? Obviously, I'd like to slap him. Is he a decent person to have a beer with? What was your as a human being? What did you find?
He is very smart, but he's not as technical as he could be, which I think is my general complaint with a lot of people who are trying to regulate technology, whether it be blockchain or other types of emerging tech. The lack of complex technical understanding is what stands between entrepreneurs and activists and actually having like ethical regulation where we're still allowed to innovate.
Yep.
But we're actually writing laws that protect people from bad actors, which is what laws and regulations are supposed to do. Protect citizens so that they're not abused. It's not supposed to stop people from building companies, like good, well-intentioned people who are just trying to build technology, right? Yeah. And that's been a lot of the battle. And so now we've got this new battle. People always try to sneak in laws right before the holidays. Or
how would you describe this law? Because I was just talking to Vesa. He's not actually, I mean, it's just happened. He doesn't actually know about it. So there's probably a lot of people watching this that don't either. How would you describe what he's trying to push through?
Well, I mean, what he's trying to push through is trying to basically what it will do, because it's a huge KYC requirement for what I would call small transactions, which would make it incredibly difficult for big businesses, for American banks, for exchanges to constantly do the types of transactions that they do. Yep. And so I think it's basically a huge roadblock between where we're at right now and the type of mass adoption momentum that we have, given that it was only, a handful of months ago that every U.S. bank is now allowed to be dealing in cryptocurrencies. It's only been, a month where we're back on the board of everyone around the world paying attention because of the pricing runs. We all of a sudden are being placed with this roadblock saying the way that you're doing business right now isn't good enough. You need to have many more hurdles in order for this to actually work properly. And I think the stipulation is at around a $10,000 value, which is really small.
It would also, I mean, sort of Bitcoin aside, it would actually make it really difficult for a lot of the innovation on Ethereum, would be my understanding, that effectively smart contracts, programmable money would really become a major issue with this particular bit of legislation.
Absolutely. And so putting in
how do you know the name and address of someone using the compound protocol, for example? It's
absolutely
sort of scenarios. Vesa selling an NFT on a decentralized platform.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And because we are a global industry that has largely been locked out of America due to bad regulation or lack thereof of any rules whatsoever that make any sense. Yeah. It means that America placing these laws on a global industry not only makes no sense, but also hampers innovation and stops Americans from being able to build American businesses, which obviously the two of you probably don't care about that. But I have spent so many years as an American trying to figure out how I can do business in my own goddamn country. Yeah. Like, come on. Come on. It's so insane. Like all the first blockchain businesses and advisories that I worked for or set up were in Estonia, Singapore, Switzerland. Yep. And that made me totally crazy that you know, sometimes people wouldn't even allow me to be on the board of a company because I'm American. And like, what the hell, honestly. So I've spent weeks or months of my life cumulatively testifying in Congress. I have spent so much time and money, all pro bono. I represent myself and my own interests when I go to Congress, and I help fly people in that can describe to legislators why this is not okay, why this makes no sense. And because we've been able to get through to all of the amazing people in Wyoming, we've brought over $10 billion. That's conservative. It could be up to $20 billion into the state of Wyoming in 2 years, because we actually have laws that make sense. And people want to do business in America, and they want to be able to build their businesses without being afraid that they have to give money back to their investors or, be prosecuted.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's a lot of people watching this at the moment that are probably hearing about this for the first time. I would probably say the majority of them, actually, and that they might be getting a little bit freaked out as this is sort of starting to wash over them, and they're like, oh, hang on a minute. I mean, for me personally, if I'm a trader here and I'm just in it for the price, I'm kind of thinking, whoa, I'm sitting on the sidelines here, or possibly even short while this plays out. We've got, what is it now, sort of 12, 13 days potentially where people actually have the opportunity to put up any objection or comment on this. I think the Blockchain Association are obviously looking at how they can step in from a legal standpoint and challenge this, and then keep it in courts for a while, so there's actually time to look at this thing properly. It does really seem like Mnuchin is trying to be a little bit sneaky here. The timing of it, the short time span, it's just ludicrous. You're an expert in this area. There couldn't be a better person for us to be talking to on this. How do you see this playing out? And if you are an investor in the space, what they want to, what's going to go down here?
I mean, I'm not afraid. I don't think it's going to go through, just because we have, new champions that just got elected in this past November, like Senator-elect Cynthia Lummis from our great state of Wyoming, who had her first Bitcoins in 2013, is incredibly technical and an absolute firecracker. If you check out her Twitter right now, the way that she's been fighting back against this is so amazing. Everyone that I've spoken to that has worked with me on blockchain legislation or has even worked on separate initiatives to me in different states, everybody is writing commentary. Everyone's up in arms over it. And I would say that this might be one of the first times where we have, big banks fight against it too.
I think how fun is that?
Going to see that.
Yeah. I mean, you've got your classic Bitcoiner watching this going, I really don't give a shit. I mean, that's the whole point of Bitcoin. Try and stop it. Good luck, sunshine. But then we've got the banks also on board.
Sean, I'm so glad that you said that, because what drives me so crazy is that, legislators trying to make laws that regulate technology that can't be regulated, like countries that try to ban Bitcoin. It's like, well, you can't do that. So let's stop being stupid and let's regulate it in a common sense way. Like, tax it, but you can't make it illegal, because you can't stop people from using it unless you shut down the entire world's internet.
Yeah. It almost seems petty, in some ways. When I first read the proposed bill, I'm like, you know what? So maybe it's not so bad. If somebody wants to put multiple transactions through 3K and less, you can do that. But actually, as you go through it, there are some caveats in there around that type of thing as well. It is actually very restrictive, and for me, it will really affect the likes of an Ethereum here more than Bitcoin. As you and I, as we just said, good luck stopping Bitcoin. You can't. That's the whole point. But for the other innovations happening in this space, I think this is a roadblock, and we're not a goodie.
Yeah,
there's one thing that I would maybe like to add to what Brittany was saying before about caring about America or not caring. But I grew up with Ghostbusters and Blues Brothers and Star Wars, and in one way, when I come to visit America, I feel like I'm almost native, because ever since I was a baby, I grew up with the culture as much as I did with the Finnish culture. And I feel like I'm some sort of a hybrid that almost, in a sense, with my attitude, fits into what America was a little bit before, better than I do in the Finnish culture in a certain sense. And I was just hanging out in Dubai with a bunch of very sort of affluent Chinese people who are building a lot of stuff in Dubai. And they've just put up this one guy, like 10 towers, and they're bringing over 300 companies from China to Dubai that are blockchain companies. And the rate and speed of their innovation and the power at which they're coming towards this whole thing, I think the biggest sort of hurdle that I would love to see happen in America is like Brittany. Obviously, you travel all over the world, you speak all over the world, you see all of these things happen. But I wish Americans would travel more, and even the legislative people would see outside of what's going on, of how much they're hurting themselves trying to block, kind of like record companies, the technology that made them wealthy to begin with, or the ideas of innovation that made the whole country so prosperous to begin with. So it would be just a small expansion and seeing, like you were saying, of what it could be again very soon, as opposed to what it's now becoming.
Well,
it's almost disheartening, and I'm not a native.
It's such a great point. America, land of the free. I think, America has to take a leading role in fintech moving forward here. Clearly, we see the Chinese getting more and more centralized, and, we all know how the personal freedoms of the people under that regime are going to shrink. I mean, to me, this is going to be painful if America follows that sort of narrative. I just hope this is the parting shot of a bitter man. And nothing more, and it doesn't fly. I mean, but whew.
Yeah, me too. I think we've got new champions in Congress that I'm confident about. I think there's enough people that are going to fight against this, that it's not going to get through. But the problem is Biden didn't put in many pro-blockchain, pro-crypto activists into leadership positions. That didn't happen. So we're going to have to really fight for it. That's for sure. But I think if anything, at the change of an administration, what usually happens is people try to stop major change when you already have kind of a lame duck administration, which means that obviously they don't have that much power left, and they try to push things through. So,
So, Brittany, I mean, a question on this front. You've been such a champion of showing the world, that our data is basically just being used by these big corporations, by private enterprise, and effectively, you spoke to governments and said, look, you've got to sort this out. This is just wrong. Governments are meant to be there to look after us. So, we've got this crazy issue where, we understand that in the blockchain space, that same data, that money, which is the ultimate sort of expression of freedom, has been challenged here by government. So on one hand, here you are, you're talking to governments going, look, Facebook are doing this with people's data. This is just wrong. So are these other social networks. So, it's got to be frustrating for you when you see those people that are meant to look after us are getting this one wrong with the ultimate form of expression, our money. You want to comment on that one for us? I mean, I guess basically my question is, who's the real problem here? Is it governments or is it the corporations?
Well, I think right now the biggest problem is lack of digital literacy.
Right.
It's that a lot of the people that are making decisions in companies either are not technical enough, or they're only driven by profits for their shareholders. And then in government, governments prefer usually to over-regulate to make sure that they don't mess up and allow people to get abused. But it's because they don't understand the way the technology works, so they'd rather over-regulate than get it wrong. And by over-regulating, they're getting it wrong. So we have two massive issues, both that stem from lack of technical understanding, in my opinion, but also that in places like America, where we have decided not to regulate the data industry, we have allowed companies to lead the way. And unfortunately, for-profit businesses are just that. Their entire design and strategy is made to create profit, not to protect customers. And that's another thing that we have worked really hard on in Wyoming, is making sure that any businesses that are holding your digital assets, whether it be, your blockchain tokens, your data, that they have a fiduciary responsibility to you. And what that means is that they have a responsibility to act in your best interests first before they think about their shareholders. And that's one of the legal requirements that I think should be commonplace in more companies, that you should actually have to care about your consumers. And unfortunately, our Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, doesn't have enough teeth. The FTC is the government agency that is supposed to make sure that consumer protection is first and foremost being taken care of by companies that have a business to consumer relationship. And that has not been incredibly strong. So it's allowed companies to bulldoze, their relationship and trust with consumers in order to create exponential profits. And that's been one of the biggest problems. It's why, I run only nonprofits. I don't run any corporate structures that are made to create profit, because I've never liked it. I don't like it. I advise and sit on the board of tons of for-profit companies, but usually on their data ethics board to help keep them ethical. For-profit entities, unfortunately, are not built to protect people. And in a regulatory space where the laws don't clearly define how you protect people, then it's really up to companies. And so they're just going to create profit instead of doing that. So we're in this weird no man's land in America. And that's why I kind of moved back here. I mean, I spent my entire adult life in Europe or in Asia and traveling. Yep. And I came back here to try to sort out the situation, because I'm like, if I'm going to be a professional for the rest of my life, working in the data industry, working in the blockchain industry, I need to make sure that that it's actually possible to work with those businesses in a way where we have a more ethical industry. Yeah. And where people can build businesses without being afraid they're going to be taken away. And so I've just zeroed in on that and concentrated on that, and we're really getting somewhere. I'm really excited about where we're at right now, and I'm really excited that finally, in less than a month's time, we finally have a new Congress to work with. And I'm so excited to actually know, hey, these are the people that I get to work with for the next 4 years. Okay. And really get to do
a couple of questions on that one. I mean, obviously the world knows you for the Cambridge Analytics situation, Brexit, the Trump election, many other situations there. Obviously, this Mnuchin scenario would effectively provide a data feed into the government of what people are up to with their cryptos. You're sort of, when you blew the whistle on what was going down with Cambridge Analytics, that was all about, these data feeds to these corporations, the way they were collecting your data and using it. Since that's happened, could you tell us about any great sort of leaps forward in protecting our privacy? And what are the good things that have happened in the last year or two on that front? Absolutely.
So, firstly, I'll always go back to Wyoming because of the amount of work that we've done there that has gone so well. But we passed a law in Wyoming that says your digital assets are your intangible personal property. So finally ascribing property rights to an asset class that was not defined yet. And having an asset be your property, an asset that you can't see and you can't touch, all of a sudden gives you immense power in terms of being able to protect yourself against abuse. If anyone were to damage your property or steal your property, you have legal recourse for that and you will win. So that was really exciting. When I became a whistleblower, I started a campaign called #OwnYourData, because I really believe that ownership over our personal data, over our digital assets, is the best way to secure our rights. In the state of Minnesota, I was the only expert witness in the first successful case against Equifax. If you remember the unethical big data company with the massive data breach of everyone's personal financial details, especially social security numbers. And we won in the Supreme Court against Equifax, and we sued them for property damage for the data breach. So in the state of Minnesota, you also own your data as your property, which is huge and very exciting. Now in California, I was part of the Prop 24 campaign. So that was the update to CCPA, the California Consumer Privacy Act, that just got passed. On that campaign with me were Andrew Yang, Shoshana Zuboff, Roger McNamee, Alistair McTaggart, who wrote CCPA and CPRA. And so now we have...
Big fan of Andrew Yang.
Yeah, big fan too. He's amazing. And a fellow believer in owning your data as a property right. That was part of his political campaign. That was part of Brock Pierce's political campaign, and has been my main campaign since I became a whistleblower, because I believe it's the best kind of remedy for the situation. And so you have new protections in California, which are really being applied by a lot of big companies nationwide. We set up the first data protection commission in the United States. So companies now have assistance with compliance with the law that is government funded. There's going to be 50 people working on this commission to actually assist people in compliance, which is huge, because that's been one of the biggest problems with GDPR in Europe, is that companies have difficulty complying with the law and having the technical understanding of how they actually understand all the data that they have on people, so that they can really provide a copy of it or delete it or stop using it if that request comes through, right? So that's been very exciting. I've also helped write the last two versions of the New York Privacy Act, which also has data ownership in there, and the first Coronavirus Contact Tracing Data Protection Act, which makes sure that if your data is going to be collected for the purposes of public health, that data then, for instance, cannot be shared with law enforcement to target peaceful protesters. It can't be used to discriminate against you, et cetera, and so forth. And we're now starting to work on laws for immunity passports as well. Immunity passports are already being tested in countries like Germany, where if you can prove that you have immunity, or now that you've had a vaccine, that you will be able to participate in certain events or go back to public life or your office. And you can't do that without it. So regulating how that data and information is used is kind of...
Could you expand on that? Because that's such a massive thing that's coming up for everybody.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And it, that really gets into like the serious state and interstate surveillance. As I think a lot of people in Europe are experiencing right now, like borders are closing. I think even the UAE is the only place in the Middle East that hasn't closed their borders. I'm not sure if any Asian countries are closing back down, but we're experiencing another round of shutdowns nearly a year after the first ones. And this is right as vaccines are rolling out. So what immunity passports mean is that you would be able to prove that you either have immunity or that you've recently had a vaccine, and therefore you would be able to participate again in public life or bigger events and gatherings. And I'm a huge proponent for opening back up. I'm a huge proponent for allowing people to run their businesses. But I do understand that this immunity passport situation might be the only way that actually happens anytime soon. So therefore, I'd rather regulate it before it gets abused, because what happened with contact tracing was that contact tracing started to be used automatically in countries in Asia where you don't have any data rights. And those Asian countries were extremely successful in stopping the spread of coronavirus. And so they were immediately, for those of you listening that don't know what contact tracing really is, what it means is that a government or a set of companies working with the government get access to all of your location data and the data on your status of whether or not you've had coronavirus. And so if you say you've had coronavirus, all of a sudden everyone that you have been within 6 feet of for the past couple weeks is notified that they need to quarantine because they could have been exposed by you, right? And so that type of data, it'll probably seem obvious to most people listening to this how that can easily be abused, right? And so I realized that most people around the world that were either not opting into that because they didn't have to under the laws in their country, or they were opting into that because they wanted to help prevent the spread of coronavirus. They wanted to help stop the loss of human life. So they were doing the right thing. And instead, what they got was complete lack of privacy and all of their data taken by governments and companies that might not have had access to that much data before. So I said, no one should get involved in contact tracing. Don't update your phone. Don't opt in until we regulate it. And so I'm going to get ahead of the immunity passport situation. And I'm going to write laws for it before it even happens, because it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. And, this doesn't need to become 1984 any faster than it already is.
Yeah. Vesa, any comments at this point? We're going to get to what you two are up to in a moment, but I know it's probably news to you, this law coming out of the Steve Mnuchin camp, which potentially, the two of you, it could have ramifications for your ability to effectively auction, sell, publicize what you are doing throughout the blockchain space.
Yeah, and now that finally I've been waiting for this NFT space to become what it's now becoming for 12 years, and now to hear this is kind of shocking, because it's going to be $1 trillion industry very soon, because the infrastructure has been built, even though it's only about, I think, up to 200 million or something like that that's been sold in NFTs as a market space. But I watched it grew from zero to here in no time at all. And knowing what now people are waking up to, what it's going to be, the limit, if it's going to be something like 3,000 to 10,000 is pretty low, as Brittany was saying, because this artist called Beeple just did a drop maybe about a week and a half ago. That's limited edition art, and it sold for $3.5 million worth of art in I think in 24 hours or something like this. And this is just the very rudimentary beginning of this whole industry that is a new thing in the world. So to now clamp down and say that there's these limitations and really try and throw a monkey wrench into it is an interesting situation altogether, because obviously the massive energy that is now behind it is going to be becoming a lot more cumbersome. But altogether, I think what is so interesting about this all is that really working with Brittany is a true dream come true from my point of view, because all of this information that we've been listening to and the obvious brilliance of Brittany is going to be encapsulated into this NFT art that really has been my process that I innovated 12 years ago. And
take us for a walk around the studio while you're talking, and tell us about what the two of you are doing.
Okay. So essentially, just to say what it is that I did 12 years ago, that I now have the privilege of having Brittany come to this place here, which is the now humble-looking studio space that we're building here, is that if you think of oil portraiture that is made of kings and sort of royalty and so forth, it's been a relatively stable process of how that was done for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And then 12 years ago, what I did is that I started body painting and also painting and photographing this whole process and putting it together into this new visual expression that resulted into digital files being the actual original thing, but encompassing the subject and their lives into a much more holistic expression of their lives and their relevance to the world and the big picture that is going on. And from that point of view, you can imagine that being in collaboration with someone like Brittany, with this amount of information and incredible life that she's had, but of course, what that life means to us all at this moment in time, not only in blockchain, but in privacy, in data ownership, in the sort of competing for the freedom of money, which essentially you could say is much more important even than the freedom of speech. Because if someone clamps down your movement or your transactions, it doesn't really matter what you say or don't say. That's a much more substantial thing to happen. So, of course, this is the power crux point of the world of what's going on. But yeah, just to go into this much more a small detail that this is the studio space. So we're going to be doing this thing, and the rails are here that are going to be going into the ceiling, and the sofas, and this really looks rather crummy right now, and then it'll look quite amazing soon. And here's some of the drapes and curtains that is going to be making this whole space. And this factory has its own saunas and conference rooms and kitchens and chill out rooms and absolutely everything incredible in order for us to welcome Brittany into
I'm coming.
Helsinki.
When are you arriving there, Brittany? I'd love to come and see you guys.
Either the last few days of January or first week of February, kind of around there. Hopefully, if the border protection allows us in, right? But it should be around there. I think we'll be able to figure it out.
Got to be careful what you say on social media because they're listening to everything. Apparently, they might not let you in.
Let us in. It'll be good for the economy.
Oh, you're in.
Well, they're now, because the UK is clamping down really heavily. So now the dual citizenship or the identity card that you have from the UK might not help altogether. So it's really an interesting situation to try and get Brittany to come here to begin with. So, but sooner or later, the borders will open enough for her to be able to come here. And for my part, I don't care how long it takes in order to get this lady over here to make this incredible stuff happen. So let's see.
So tell us a wee bit about the collaboration between you two. What exactly is it?
Maybe if you, Brittany, if you want to take the first sort of stab at this, what it is from your point of view, and maybe I'll say it from my point of view after.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have come from the experience that the issues that I deal with and my personal story is, so complex that art is the best way to explain it. I discovered that in The Great Hack, where I got to work with some of the world's best directors, producers, animators, and, was able to teach at minimum tens of millions, but probably over, in the hundreds of millions at this point, people about what data privacy means, about what this fight really is, about how bad the problem has become, and why I care so much and why more people should care and do something. And so, when I got connected to Vesa, I was just, so excited because his art is just so beautiful and so complex that, I knew it would be the next right medium to talk about the growing movement for data protection and for, encrypted technologies like blockchain that help us manage data, to be kind of the wave of the future, that this is where we're going, but that it comes from the need to protect. It comes from like rife abuse by people who do not have the world's best interests at heart, that we have to use these technologies in order to push for a more ethical future. And there's so many ways to be able to tell that through the diverse mediums that Vesa works with. So I'm just so honored that he chose me as the next collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember watching, as you say, the documentary you were in. I just sat there going, after the thousands of conversations you have with people where you're sitting there going, is our phone actually listening to us? To actually hear somebody come out of a well-produced piece of art, as you say, a great documentary, and really just lay it down with some, whoa, okay, this is some scary shit. So, as you say, Vesa's an amazing artist. You're right at the forefront of what's happening in this blockchain space. I mean, for a lot of people watching this maybe don't know. I mean, I know when you left Cambridge Analytics, you didn't actually leave to sort of become that whistleblower. You were going into the blockchain space because you actually saw it as being more important than sort of big data and how things are going to play out in the future. So, that's awesome to know that someone like you is out there sort of championing the cause. You've really got a platform, and combined with Vesa's artistic abilities, I think the two of you are going to do something special. Looking forward to it.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to get there.
Yeah, you can tell that again. There's a whole bunch of people here very excited to come and welcome you to this whole process. But it really is like to be able to do and illustrate the personal side of Brittany's story, because there's an emotional impact and a kind of roller coaster that she's been through. And I listened to the targeted audiobook, and of course I've been doing a lot of research into her personal life from a certain point of view, and how to sort of take you through on this almost like a movie-like protagonist way of capturing NFTs. Because right here where I'm at right now, this is going to be the round studio part, but there's going to be a back door into this space. Just 2 seconds, someone's calling me. Sorry about that. So this here is right before there's going to be a whole green screen corner with all the movie lights and stuff like that, where we're going to be able to record Brittany up against the green screen. So the whole idea is to get special effects companies to come and blend the sort of paint and art side of what is going to be captured into special effects, kind of like produce these little mini movies, almost like 10 to 20-second clips that might be in part education, in part telling the story in an artistic way, and then sort of rendering it into this bigger, larger context that is what this story really, how it involves all of us. Because basically for the longest of time, art has been something that, let's say, outside of the bubble of contemporary art, it's almost become irrelevant. It's like the jokes become that you can have pieces of rocks that are put on pedestals and then they're passed as art in galleries, and pretentious people drink red wine and sort of throw money at each other in this glorious little life. And what I'm trying to do from my part is to truly get art to be a slice of life that truly contributes something to our lives and helps us become sort of our better selves to a degree. And the ethics through which Brittany is coming towards this at, like you were saying, that you're only really interested in the sort of non-profit part of it, and the profit part is really like something quite icky. I mean, I come from an entrepreneurial family, but when I started seeing documentaries like The Corporation and the Zeitgeist and everything, when the internet came along, all of those just mind-blowing activist films that are showcasing how just free trade alone can't really pull us out of a lot of the rough of where we're at as a planet. But we've sort of lost in between, let's say, the political discussion between left and right. We've lost a lot of nuance. And that is one thing that I'm hoping to bring into this whole thing is like, so what does it mean to lock down? Is it only safe to just lock down everything and then no one's going to die? Or is it that, because it's sort of, we're operating on this almost like a caricature type of social media thing of how we talk to one another. And of course, The Great Hack is a documentary that illustrates this very well, of how we've polarized so badly. So my true essence is a bridge builder.
Brittany, what are the best sort of innovations that you're seeing in the Bitcoin, crypto, and blockchain space? What are some of the things you love that you think people should be aware of and be having a look at?
Absolutely. So a lot of the companies that I would promote or that I work with are solving a lot of the problems that I've been freaking out about in the privacy and data protection space for so many years. And that's why I'm so drawn to being a big part of the blockchain industry and helping so many people build their businesses, is because I truly believe that this industry is where a lot of the solutions are coming from. So from digital identity, firstly, where, owning the personally identifiable information that can identify you as a person. The amount of digital identity solutions that are coming out right now are pretty exciting. There's even a new one that came out yesterday from Craig Sellers, who was one of the founders of Tether. He released, his first kind of announcement yesterday, but there are so many innovative solutions in that space. Made-Me is another really interesting one from Delia Tanda at the Internet Foundation. But like being able to have a digital representation of you that doesn't come from Facebook or Google, that comes from your self-sovereignty, that comes from you owning encrypted parts of your personal information, so that when you are saying that you are you and you're signing digitally into a bank account or a government website or literally anything that you are only showing kind of like a public key or some sort of representation. You're not giving people your first name, last name, address, date of birth, social security number, et cetera, and so forth, but you can verify that you are who you say you are. And so digital identity solutions, number one, but keychain.org is Craig's new project, which I think is really cool. Obviously, something coming from him is going to be pretty amazing. On the kind of like smart contracting front, I really believe that kind of transparency.
Can I just quickly ask you, just before you move on to the next one, just on digital ID, what are your thoughts on ID 2020?
Yeah, well, I mean, I have never participated. I was supposed to this year, and kind of,
A friend of mine's pretty convinced John Edge is Satoshi, and should kill me if I didn't ask you that question.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't really have a personal opinion, to be honest, besides anyone that is trying to push these ideas forward is doing something good in my mind.
Okay. Sorry to jump in there. You were moving on to the next, the other great innovations happening in blockchain.
No, not at all. Yeah. I mean, I hope to participate in the ID 2020 conference this year, but in terms of the way that general group is bringing together a lot of the top thought leaders, is so important. Some of the solutions that are coming out of that are really important. And, there's so much room for innovation in this space, so much room. Right now, there might be, hundreds of different options, but we have billions of people around the world. So I don't see this as a competition of who's going to become the next Google or Facebook. I don't see that. I see this as room for hundreds or thousands of solutions to actually provide those types of services for all of the human beings that exist on planet Earth. Because that's where we're going. We're going to get to a point where everyone is using a digital ID. There's already incredible platforms like Cardano. I love Charles Hoskinson and what he's built there. And they're doing digital ID for entire governments, right? So running the digital identification for, every single person that is a citizen or a resident of a particular country. So there's some really exciting stuff coming out of that space. Next, most importantly to me, is kind of transparency in terms of opt-in and permission structures. And this is where I get so excited about different types of, smart contracting infrastructure. Casper Labs is about to launch. Really love the team at Casper. They have built something very special. So I'm excited about the types of privacy protocols that they have. And so they already have beta partners. You guys can contact them if anyone here is a dev that's interested in testing that out, because they're going to be launching their mainnet in February or March. Big fan of that. In terms of the ethical social media space, Block One released a Facebook competitor called Voice. So if you want to check out voice.com, those accounts are now available to anyone around the world. They already have millions of users, and you do have to do a KYC because they don't allow fake accounts. So there are no trolls or bots on voice.com. If you start posting on there, you only get comments from real human beings and intellectual, friendly.
Is that one of Brock Pierce's projects, that one?
Brock was definitely involved, yeah. So Brock's a good friend of mine and is now spending most of his time in politics, but promoting.
I know. Weren't you running his campaign?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. When he came to me and said that he wanted to run, I was just like, thank God. Thank God there's someone that has, the same, values and that has fought for this type of stuff for so long that wants to run.
He's arguably the biggest investor in the entire blockchain space so far. Any inside track on any other things he's up to at the moment in the space?
Yeah, so he's planning his next race, and so I'll leave that to him to announce. But I'm just such a huge supporter of his. It's always amazing when your friend decides to run for office, and he's been such an incredible supporter of other people running for office. So he has been one of the co-founders of a new movement we're involved with called the Independent National Union. And so we're trying to get more people to run independent of a party. So not being a Democrat or a Republican, just running as you for office. And so he's helping support. We've now dedicated to do 20 races in 2021. We're going to do 200 races in 2022, and we're trying to get to 2,000 races by 2024, aiming to hopefully win at least half of them. So there's only 35 independents that have been elected into office in the United States. So if we can get 10 more into office in 2021, we're adding about 30% more to the group. And so I'm pretty excited about that. I've always wanted to run for office, but I never thought I would run as I would never have run as a Republican. But over the past many years, I knew that I wouldn't run as a Democrat either. So I'm so excited that that's now an opportunity to work with people who are a little more free thinking and don't want to be
Brittany,
told.
I'd vote for you. Hurry up and run. I'm not allowed to vote in the US, so I mean, maybe one day when we have global, I don't know, some sort of.
Yeah, well, I take that as an endorsement. Thank you very kindly.
Oh no! Look, I've really been looking forward to talking with you. I'm super excited to see that you're working with my good friend Vesa. So that's all kicking off in the next couple of weeks, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. So if anyone here is interested in collaborating with us, we are totally open to working with like-minded people, companies that want to be involved, that care about data protection, privacy, innovation in the blockchain technology space, not just for sponsorship of the creation of the art, but also the big events that we're going to be doing, probably in the summer and fall, because it's going to take a while to create the art. We're starting in January, February, but there are a lot of complex multimedia pieces. And so we're looking at summer, fall for doing our first launch events, which will be a combination of kind of like conference and high-end auctions. We might even be launching at the Dubai World's Fair, which starts October 1st in the UAE. They've kept pretty open. We've got a lot of good friends there. So, it's hard to plan something in London and New York when everything's completely locked down right now. So we're planning for places that are currently open, and we're really excited to.
How are you handling that on a personal level? Because I obviously watched a few of your interviews before talking with you today, and one of the things where I think we've got quite a bit in common. We love to be in as many countries and cities as often as possible. I think that's very much part of your nature. How are you dealing with having sort of been stuck in one place for great lengths of time?
Well, for most of the shutdown, I was on Brock's campaign, so I was living on a bus.
You were moving around.
with our faces plastered on the side.
It's never a dull moment with that guy. I've met him a few times.
So I can't say that I was in one place for most of this year. That would be a farce. But I am now. I'm settled in Austin, Texas right now, and it's becoming the new Silicon Valley of America.
That's a real Bitcoin and crypto hub, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Joe Rogan just moved here. Elon Musk, like the people keep coming.
All the cool kids are there. I want to move there.
All the cool kids. Yeah, exactly. So pleased to be somewhere where there's no winter. Really excited about that.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So I know you're about to go and jump on a plane again shortly. Right. So we'll wrap it up very shortly. Vesa, any closing comments before we go?
No, just maybe just to add a little bit to what Brittany was saying about this co-creating sort of idea with this project. I mean, obviously, there's going to be a lot of eyes when we do launch it, and shout out to Dr. Marwan Al-Zaruni from the Dubai Blockchain Center, who just had me over there, and how amazing it was to be around people. I mean, I love conferences just as much, and hanging out with our very awesome little bubble that we have in the blockchain space, intellectually and sort of energetically and all these different kinds of ways. So it was amazing to be among human beings again, and they're just doing it right. And I'm happy to see that they're open, and maybe that is one of the places where we're definitely going to be launching and doing stuff with. So that's incredible. But we do need people to come and sort of help us create this stuff, because this is not cheap to put together. The special effects and the studio space and everything that we're putting together is really quite an operation forward to what usually this kind of art requires to make, because we really do want people to experience something new. And the monetary incentives and all of the attentions and all of those, we're definitely going to take care of that. Those who come and create with us are going to get more than their fair share of positive benefits to being with us. But we really do need to co-create this. We can't do this by ourselves. So for those who this sort of calls and can see this as an opportunity, we're very open to have those conversations, and we do need to have them quite fast, because Brittany is soon to be here, and then I would love to have some of these relationships formed with the special effects companies and those which are being talked about, but there's more that are still needed. So
well, Vesa, I'm gonna put after we finish this, I'm gonna put the pressure on you. I want to put a list of the sort of people you precisely want to hear from, because I'm gonna reach out to as you know, I know a lot of people in the media world, especially from a creative side. So, any people that you want to come and collaborate, I'd love to put that in the show notes and be quite specific about who you'd like to hear from. We will do that. So, anyone watching this, look below.
Much appreciated.
Get in touch. These are two of the better people in the crypto and blockchain space. I'm sure you'd love to come and get involved.
Thank you, good sir.
You got plenty of space in that setup you got there, Vesa.
This is going to be finally.
I might bring a couple of hundred of my closest friends when I come to see you.
Please do, Sean.
When we put the conference, when we do put the conference together, I do hope to see the both of you physically in Helsinki for this event. That is going to be in about a year and a half as well, and this is going to be one of the central hubs of where we're going to be doing a lot of exciting stuff from. So, the sauna will be heated, and the drinks will be cold or hot.
You had me at sauna, Vesa. You had me at sauna.
We're going to show you some good old Scandinavian and Finnish hospitality, that's for sure.
I actually lived in Scandinavia for a little while. I know what the saunas are all about. Is you're going to sort of get used to that, hanging out with naked Scandinavians, running out and jumping in a lake after sitting in a sauna.
You don't actually have
I'm a
to
Kiwi.
be
We're a little bit
anymore.
reserved, but I got used to it after a while.
Sort of all traditions, and people are always accommodated to feel comfortable. The point is to enjoy ourselves, not to put anyone on the spot. But that's another thing.
Well, the world certainly needs some more joy, and it's been absolutely joyous talking to the two of you. And Brittany, an absolute pleasure to have you on the channel. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, awesome. Really look forward to seeing the amazing piece of art that the two of you are about to come up with. So stay tuned for that, people, and links below to follow two of my favourite people in the space. Thanks so much for your time.
Much love.
Guys.
Cheers now. Bye-bye.